The words shattered the cheerful mood of the holiday party. My manager, Everett, glared at me, face twisted with fury, saliva dotting his chin as he continued his outburst. Twinkling lights blurred through the tears in my eyes as silence blanketed the 50 people surrounding us, all watching this public shaming unfold. And my offense? I had dared to suggest fixes to our floundering marketing strategy, suggestions he'd stubbornly refused for months. I stood frozen, champagne glass unmoving in my hand, as Everett raged on about my supposed incompetence. 3 years of mistreatment surged through my memory. Ideas stolen, overtime ignored, accomplishments handed to others. Everett's wife, Naomi, touched his arm, her face flushed with discomfort. "Honey, maybe." "No," I said calmly, interrupting her. "That's not what the board said yesterday when they named me your new boss." His glass slipped from his hand, champagne spilling over designer shoes. The murmur started. Naomi's mouth fell open, recognition dawning in her eyes. She had been at the same yoga class last week when I got the promotion call, a coincidence I hadn't registered until now. Everett's face paled as he stared at me. "This has to be some kind of mistake," he sputtered, eyes scanning for allies. "The mistake," I said, my voice steady even as adrenaline surged through me, was assuming no one would notice. "But before I go on, let me ask, have you ever had that moment when your instincts tell you to back down, to retreat, but you stand firm instead? If you've ever had someone try to diminish you, this story might feel familiar. Stay with me, because what came next didn't just change my role, it reshaped how I understood power. My name is Andy Mercer. I'm 32, a data-driven introvert to a fault. Until recently, I was the quiet fixer in our marketing department, the one rescuing struggling campaigns on weekends, yet mysteriously absent from the credit lists. Raised by a single mother who instilled the value of hard work, I entered Thompson Media Consultancy full of drive and ambition. 6 months in, Everett became my direct manager. Charismatic, confident, he could command any room. His image as a marketing genius preceded him. The first time he claimed my idea as his own, I brushed it off as a mix-up. The second time, I wondered if I hadn't communicated clearly. By the third, I saw the pattern, but stayed silent, afraid of being branded difficult. I watched as Everett consistently lifted ideas from the women on our team. Lukia's client engagement plan? Rebranded as Everett's breakthrough strategy. Tessa's digital roadmap? Displayed in an executive pitch with his name on every slide. "It's just the way it is," Tessa whispered when I asked. "You either get used to it or you leave." But I couldn't get used to it. Not when I saw such incredible talent dimming right in front of me. So, 6 months before that infamous party, I started documenting everything, not to get revenge, but to stay sane. I created a spreadsheet to track who came up with what, how successful the projects were, and who got the credit. What I found was undeniable. Campaigns led by women outperformed others by 34%, despite being given less visibility and fewer resources. I might have kept this data to myself forever, if not for Vivian Torres, a board member who stopped by my desk during a routine visit and noticed my charts. "What are you working on?" she asked. "Just some side analysis," I mumbled. She squinted. "That doesn't look like a hobby. That looks like the kind of intelligence the board should be reviewing." Her words lit a spark. "Would you have time for coffee? There's something I think you should see." 2 days later, in a quiet cafe a few blocks from work, I showed her the full report. She listened intently, then said, "We've been wondering why our female retention rates are dropping. Now I understand.
Keep documenting. Keep performing.
And don't mention this meeting." Nothing changed outwardly. I kept showing up, quietly working, watching Everett keep reaping rewards from others' ideas. Then an email arrived. A confidential invitation to meet with the board. I showed up 15 minutes early, nerves coiled tight in my stomach. I expected Vivian. Instead, the whole board filed in. "Ms. Mercer," the chairperson said, "we've reviewed your data alongside our KPIs. We've made a decision regarding the marketing division." I felt dizzy. Was I being fired for this? "We want to offer you the position of marketing director," effective immediately. I blinked. Sorry, what? Everett will now report to you. The announcement goes out tomorrow. But he's got 10 more years of experience. The chairperson leaned in. Experience is about more than time served. It's about results. You've held this department together behind the scenes. Imagine what you'll do in the spotlight. I hadn't told anyone yet. I needed time to process it. But Everett forced my hand with his outburst. Now, in the shocked silence after I revealed the promotion, I realized the hard part was just beginning. Everett's rage had given way to cold calculation. We should talk in private, he said through gritted teeth, grabbing my elbow. I gently pulled away. We can meet in my office. Tomorrow morning at 9, I said loud enough for nearby coworkers to hear. I'll be reviewing the department structure. As I walked off, voices buzzed behind me. I could feel Everett's stare, but didn't look back. Near the dessert table, I spotted Lucia and Tessa. Is it true? Lucia asked. I nodded. He's going to make your life miserable, Tessa warned. Probably, I said. But this time, he'll have to do it from beneath me. That night, I slept better than I had in years. The next morning, I arrived early. My things had already been moved to the director's office, a sleek, glass-walled space far from my tiny cubicle. On the desk, a yellow sticky note. Enjoy it while it lasts. I was reviewing files when Everett walked in at 9 sharp, acting like nothing had happened. Andy, congrats. I think there's been a miscommunication about reporting structure. I motioned to the seat across from me. No confusion. The board was quite clear.
His grin faltered.
I've run this team for 7 years. The clients know me. The staff respects me. This setup won't work. It already is, I said, sliding a folder to him. Inside were new department protocols board approved. He skimmed them, face souring. Team rotations? Documenting idea origins? This is micromanaging. This is transparency, I corrected. Everyone will be credited for their own work.
He leaned in.
You think you've won? I have relationships with every major client. One word, and they'll be gone. I was ready. The board already briefed our top clients. They're excited for this change. This is about yesterday, isn't it? He snapped. You couldn't handle a little feedback. This is about 3 years of stolen work.
And it ends now.
He stood, eyes blazing. You've made an enemy, Andy. I don't forget things like this. As he stormed out, I saw Lucia outside the glass, having overheard everything. She had a small, hopeful smile. That moment made every risk worthwhile. The weeks that followed weren't easy. Everett forgot to include me in vital client threads. Meeting invites disappeared from my calendar. Key documents went missing before big presentations. But I'd anticipated it. I had backups. I set up mirrored communications. And most importantly, I met with team members one-on-one, especially the ones who'd been silenced. Your strategy for Harrington is brilliant, I told Tessa during one meeting. You'll be presenting it to the client next week. Her eyes widened.
Me?
Everett always handled Harrington. Not anymore, I said. It's your idea. That simple phrase marked a shift. I began handing over full ownership of ideas to the individuals who actually created them. The transformation was instant and powerful. Team members who once worked mechanically now lit up with inspiration. Project outcomes improved drastically when their real creators took the reins. Meanwhile, Everett's sabotage became more transparent, even as his control slipped. Rumors began circulating, insinuations that I'd slept my way into leadership. Oddly, the gossip seemed to originate from his end of the office. I didn't dignify the rumors with a response. I let results speak louder. I launched a weekly innovation forum where staff could showcase current projects and receive open recognition. Everett never presented original work, only buzzwords or recycled jargon lifted from industry articles, occasionally verbatim. 3 months into my new role, a defining opportunity emerged. Harrington Industries, our largest client, was considering expanding their contract to cover global marketing, a potential multi-million-dollar deal. I assigned a cross-functional team that included Lucia, Tessa, and 3 other underutilized employees to develop the proposal. The night before the pitch, I placed their polished presentation in a labeled folder on my desk, planning a final review the next morning. When I arrived at 7 a.m., it was gone. Security logs showed just one person had accessed our floor between midnight and my arrival, Everett. He had badged in at 5:43 and left at 6:12. At 8:30 a.m., I got his email. Andy, I took the initiative to handle the Harrington pitch today. Given my long-standing relationship with the client, I believe it makes sense for me to lead. I'll update you afterward. I checked the room booking system. He had moved the meeting off-site to a restaurant 15 minutes away, scheduled for 9 a.m. Time was tight. I immediately called Vivian Torres. Andy, is everything okay? She asked with calm concern. Everett stole the Harrington presentation and relocated the meeting. I need help. Her response was swift. Text me the location. I've got this. I wasn't sure what I've got this meant, but I trusted her. I sent the address, gathered every backup file of the proposal, thanks to our triple redundancy protocol, and rushed out. At the restaurant, I paused outside the door. Through the window, I saw Everett seated with the Harrington executives, already deep into his pitch. I was about to walk in when a sleek black car pulled up. Vivian stepped out, followed by 2 board members, and, unexpectedly, Eleanor Harrington herself, the CEO and founder of Harrington Industries. Perfect timing, Vivian said, adjusting her blazer. Eleanor and I were having breakfast when your message came in. She was very interested in our new approach to creative transparency. Eleanor, a sharp-eyed woman in her 60s with commanding presence, gave a curt nod. I've heard you're changing how attribution works. As someone whose ideas were often taken by others, I'm curious. We entered together. The look on Everett's face was pure shock. Everett, Eleanor said smoothly, I didn't know you were presenting today. The schedule we received had Andy Mercer and her team listed. Everett recovered quickly. Last-minute shift. Given my long history with Harrington, I thought it best to take the lead. How thoughtful, Eleanor replied, smiling coolly. But since Andy is here, with board members, perhaps she should present as planned? Actually, I said, stepping forward. This presentation was developed by Lucia, Tessa, and 3 other colleagues. I'm just here to deliver their work. Eleanor's eyebrows lifted slightly. Giving public credit to your team? That's refreshing. She shot Everett a meaningful look. I'd love to hear what your team came up with, Andy. I set up the slides. As I worked, Everett hissed, This doesn't change anything. You're still in over your head. Unbothered, I began presenting the international strategy, explicitly crediting each team member for their contributions. By the end, Eleanor and her staff were nodding with clear approval. This is exactly the forward-thinking we want, Eleanor said. Especially the Asia-Pacific Initiative, Lucia's work. Was it? Correct, I replied. Can we speak to the team members now? They're available, I said, pulling out my tablet. I can connect them via video in 5 minutes. Perfect, Eleanor smiled. The next 45 minutes were a triumph. My team, beamed in via video call, confidently explained their respective strategy sections. Their insight was evident, their energy contagious. Meanwhile, Everett remained quiet, tight-lipped, tense. When Harrington executives asked specific questions, he had no answers. He hadn't understood the strategy well enough to fake it. After the session ended, Eleanor walked with me toward the door. Vivian told me about your analysis on performance and credit. I'd like to see that data. I'd be happy to share it, I said. She paused and lowered her voice. I know what you're doing. 20 years ago, I wish someone had done the same for me. She handed me her card, a personal number scribbled on the back. Call if you ever need anything. In the following weeks, Everett's position continued to deteriorate. The Harrington deal went through, our biggest ever, and included a clause requiring the original contributors to remain involved throughout rollout. Other clients took note. Transparency wasn't just our internal policy now, it had become our competitive edge. Everett doubled down on his games. He emailed me at 3 a.m., then scheduled surprise meetings at dawn. He publicly questioned every decision I made, framing the company's shift as a move toward emotional decision-making over real results. But the numbers didn't lie. Project efficiency soared. Client feedback improved. Employee turnover plummeted. And Everett? In our new tracking system, he had produced 0 measurable outcomes. In 3 months, he hadn't created a single idea worth implementation. Our IT department flagged that he was applying to other firms, uploading resumes on company time. But his record, stripped of stolen achievements, made it tough to secure a comparable role. I could have fired him. The board would have backed me. But that would have made him a martyr, an excuse to spin the narrative that I'd pushed out a veteran for petty reasons. I needed something clearer. The quarterly department review provided it. We'd launched an anonymous peer evaluation system, measuring actual contribution rather than popularity. Everett's results were disastrous, not because of interpersonal issues, but because he truly added nothing to the team's output. After reviewing the findings with the board, we announced a department restructure. Everyone received updated roles based on demonstrated skill. Everyone, that is, except Everett. He was assigned a new position, documentation compliance specialist. His responsibility? Ensuring all credit was properly attributed, monitoring for misappropriation, upholding the integrity of our creative system. Yes, the same system designed to stop the exact behavior that defined his career. To thrive in this new job, he'd have to prevent the very thefts he once relied on. Every success in this role would reinforce the framework that exposed his failure. I called him into my office to explain the transition. "This is constructive dismissal," he said immediately. "You're trying to make me quit." "Not at all," I replied evenly. "It's a key role in our updated structure. The board chose you specifically for your attention to process. You're demoting me to a glorified file clerk. I'm assigning you based on where you've demonstrated ability. You'll keep your title and pay. Your office stays." "This is personal. Revenge for the times I challenged you." I leaned forward.
No.
"This is about accountability, something you've never embraced." "I'll sue for harassment." "You can," I said calmly. "But discovery works both ways. Every email, every meeting recording, every documented instance of you taking credit for others' work will be on record." Is that really the story you want to tell? The next morning, his office sat empty, not cleared out, just untouched. I assumed he'd taken a personal day to process everything. But right before lunch, he reappeared, a box of belongings in hand, his face unreadable. "Relocating?" I asked, genuinely unsure.
"Moving on," he replied.
"I've accepted an offer from another company." For a brief moment, I felt oddly deflated. Had he truly slipped away so easily? That was fast. "Who with?" A flicker of discomfort passed over his expression. "It's more of a horizontal shift, an opportunity to help build something from scratch." 2 weeks later, I found out the truth. A former coworker messaged me a screenshot from social media. Everett grinning, standing beside 2 others in a modest office, announcing his new title as marketing strategist at a startup I'd never heard of. The entire company had 3 employees, counting him. But I didn't feel victorious. That wasn't what any of this had been about. The true win came 3 months later, when the results of our biannual employee engagement survey were published. Participation rate, 100%. Job satisfaction, up 42%. Confidence in leadership, up 57%. Willingness to recommend our workplace, up 61%. But what meant most appeared in the anonymous comments. One line in particular caught my eye. "For the first time in my professional life, I feel safe sharing my ideas. I no longer fear having my contribution stolen. I don't have to choose between career progress and personal ethics anymore." That was the real triumph. Not Everett's departure, but the creation of a workplace where people like him couldn't survive, where the toxic behaviors that once dominated were now obsolete. 6 months after Everett left, I received an invitation from Eleanor Harrington to speak at a women's leadership summit. My topic? Transparency as transformation, how attribution fuels innovation. While preparing my keynote, I received an unexpected email from Naomi, Everett's now ex-wife. Subject: Thank you. Her message was short. Andy, I'm not sure if you remember me from the holiday party, but I wanted to reach out and say thank you. What you did at your company gave me the clarity to examine my own relationship. I realized Everett had been taking credit for my efforts for years, both professionally and personally. The day after he started that new job, I filed for divorce. I've since launched my own interior design business. For the first time in 15 years, my name is on everything I create. Your courage created a ripple I never expected to catch. Naomi. I read her message several times. My actions hadn't just changed one workplace, they'd radiated outward, inspiring personal revolutions I hadn't anticipated. On the night of the conference, I stood on stage before 500 women and a handful of men to share what we'd achieved. Not just a restructured department, but a reimagined workplace culture where transparency was both a spotlight and a shield. I concluded with this. The most profound power of transparency is that it doesn't require confrontation. It doesn't need retaliation or dramatic showdowns. It simply shines a light, clearly, fairly, and without bias. And under that light, the true contributors glow naturally, while those who offer nothing must either adapt or disappear. I paused, thinking briefly of Everett in that tiny startup office. They must evolve or fade out. Applause erupted like thunder. As people began lining up to speak with me afterward, I noticed one familiar figure standing just beyond the crowd, Vivian Torres. Once the last guest had left, she approached, smiling warmly. Remarkable speech. Thank you for giving me something worth speaking about. She shook her head gently. I didn't give you anything. I just opened a door. You built everything beyond it. She handed me a sealed envelope. The board asked me to deliver this in person. Inside was a formal letter confirming my promotion, Senior Vice President of Creative Strategy, a newly formed position tasked with leading innovation across all departments. We're scaling your transparency model company-wide, Vivian said. Every team, every division. The board believes you're the one to lead this evolution. I thought back to that holiday party, just 1 year earlier. I remembered standing frozen, humiliated, on the edge of quitting. I remembered almost choosing silence and resignation over change. Had I done that, none of this would exist. I'm honored, I replied, meaning it with all my heart. That night, as I reviewed my conference slides in the hotel room, a phone notification pinged. It was a news alert. Breaking, local startup shuts down after failing to secure Series B funding. It was Everett's company. I felt no joy, no sense of vengeance. That had never been my goal. I hadn't set out to ruin him. I'd set out to rebuild a system so that people like him couldn't prosper unless they truly changed. Some might call that grace. I call it justice. Exactly 1 year after that disastrous holiday party, our company threw another celebration. This time, I stood at the center, raising a glass in a room alive with energy, optimism, and talent. To transparency, I said, and 50 voices replied in unison, to transparency. Across the city, Everett was probably revising his resume, preparing to charm his way into a new job, perhaps another place where he could steal brilliance that wasn't his. But he'd find fewer doors open. Our model, the transparency framework, had spread far beyond our office. Former employees had carried it into new organizations. Competitors had adopted similar structures. The ripple had become a wave. In the end, my victory wasn't in getting Everett fired. It wasn't in embarrassing him or watching his career unravel. My victory was in changing the rules so thoroughly and permanently that people like Everett could no longer win. And that, more than any fleeting moment of revenge, was a triumph I'll always treasure. If this story resonated with you, there's a good chance someone's taken credit for your ideas before. Maybe you're still gathering the courage to speak up, to take ownership. Remember this. Transformation doesn't always require confrontation. Sometimes, it just needs a light shined in the right place until the truth becomes undeniable. If Andy's journey moved you, like, subscribe, and share your own experience in the comments. Because when we speak the truth together, We build a world where the Everetts can no longer thrive.